guys, welcome to episode 25. Today I'm going to cover an old classic progressive house label, one that was a staple for me and really all of the DJs in the Philadelphia and New York area back in the early 2000s, and that is Saul Recordings. Saul was started in 2001 by Satoshi Tomiie. He is a notorious progressive producer, or at least he was back in that era. I think now he's shifted over more to tech house and deep house, but back in the day, man, Saul was where it was at if you wanted that dark, big room progressive sound. So most of the DJs, that I was friends with had Saul records in their box. If you went to the record store, you were gonna get them. And I think it was such a big label that it's worth going back and doing a little historical, overview of some of my favorites. I'm not saying that everything I'm going to drop in this episode is like the best and, nothing else should be considered, but there's going to be a few that I miss. If there's any that, you really have an affinity for and I miss them in this episode, please just let me know because I'd be happy to add them to my want list. For you collectors out there, most Saul records you can get for $5 to $10. So have at it if you hear anything you like here. We'll get started with Saul number 1. And this is by Bypath. Bypath is Satoshi Tomiie and Stephan K. It's a duo. Stephan K is half of Creamer and K, who were huge back in the tribal progressive days from maybe 2000 to 2008. I actually thought of maybe doing a future episode dedicated to Creamer and K. I think there's enough to make something out of there. But anyways, this is Bypath Paranoise, and the main path is really wicked, dark. I'm not saying that this is maybe aged as well as some of the other records that I'm gonna go through here. The most noticeable thing that makes this sound out of that 2000-2001 era is the way the kick has more of like a sharp attack on it. If you notice, modern progressive has more muted kicks. Besides that though, you can't fault it just for sounding a little bit older. It was really cool, and I really like the way that the percussion sounds. It kind of sounds like a rattlesnake tail. I always pictured like a rattlesnake tail kind of like shaking when I heard this track. I think it was a great way to kick off the label. Next up is Saul 02, and this is Bypath versus M.A.M.P. Now it's interesting here, M.A.M.P. is just another alias for Bypath. It's still Stephan K and still Satoshi Tomiie. I guess they're versus each other, I don't really know. But this one is cool because it has a very metallic percussion in it. Track's called Penetration. I like the A1. This was the one that got me hooked on Saul when I first started listening to music back in the day, and I didn't know what was what and I didn't know what I was hearing. I was on one of those AOL mailing lists where they would mail out MP3s attached to emails, and you would subscribe to these mailing lists and just get these MP3s. You had no idea the quality or what you were getting. Half of them were mislabeled. But I stumbled onto Penetration, I remember that, I remember thinking how wicked it was. Really cool track, and like I said, a great way to kick off the label. Still coming on strong in 2001, we've got Kodama, Slightly Forward. The element that I like the most in this track is that progressive bass. It has that very warm, I think it's called a sawtooth bass. Somebody can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but it just kind of has like a very enveloping, it's kind of bass line that you would feel in your chest, and I always thought that that was really nice. That is still a sound, that bass line that you hear in here is still a sound that you'll hear in modern progressive house records now, and the reason is because it works. It, you know, if you mix that with a melody, it just comes off really nice to the listener, and if it's on a big system, you can feel it, and it's just a very nice experience for the listener slash dancer. Trying to go a little faster here. I have a lot of ground to cover today. I picked more records for this episode than I've ever picked for an episode before. Next up, we are in 2002 now, and this is Jerry Bonham's The Seventh Seal. On this one, I like the dub mix. I wrote a nice review for the dub mix, which is, you know, on this side for this record. This is very loopy and hypnotic. I mean, bordering on, it's the closest thing to tech house that I know of on this label. It changes very slowly. It's very like drawn out, maybe 10-11 minute track on that dub mix, and yeah, just really wicked track. Let me know what you guys think of this one. Next up is a pick from my friend Dave Stevens. I'm gonna give him total credit for this. Dave made, back in the day, he made a mix CD that was like one of the most perfect mix CDs I've ever heard. He had a nighttime CD that had the more aggressive sounds, and then he had a morning disc that he did. And on the morning disc, he had this one here. This is Echomen, The Cure, and it's called the Dragon Dub. And it's basically just, it's a remix of the original, or a re-edit of the original. Actually, I think the Dragon Dub might be Satoshi Tomiie touching this. I'm not sure. But the reason I like this is it has this low riding melody that kind of like rises and falls every 8 beats in the background. This is like when you're driving home from the club and you need something that's like really not in your face and can just kind of like just chill you out and get you home. This is the record that'll do it. Coming up on 2004 now. Huge track that came out. I recently heard, this is Stephan K, Numb, by the way. I heard this played by Naveen G in one of his opening sets for Digweed. I think it was like 2, maybe 3 years ago when he opened for Digweed. he dropped this, and he mixed out of the Ricardo Villalobos version of Hail Bop into this, and it sounds so good. Maybe I'll dig up a link for that and put it in the description below. It was one of those old opening for Digweed sets. But I always thought that this sounded like a little bit like psy-trance. I understand that this is not a psy-trance record. I'm not claiming that. I'm saying there's something about the way that like twisted, gnarly sound comes in that makes it sound like psy-trance to me. Just a couple of the elements in there. Really cool stuff, and I would say maybe one of the most badass records out of the entire catalog. If you're gonna zone in on just a couple from this episode, go here first. Go here first. This is huge. Next up, we are up to 2005 now, and I guess Saul liked this record so much that they went and did a single-sided release for it. This is Niki B and Christian F, who were making a ton of progressive music back in the mid-2000s. They were just releasing all the time, and this track is called Behind the Fame, There's a Person. The vocal that this samples is Tracy Chapman's song Behind the Wall, and it's the vocal where she says, "The police always come late, if they come at all." Really cool track, dark, twisted, and I think one of the best things that Niki B and Christian F ever made. They had a lot of stuff that they were making, so it was really hit and miss. Even back then, when like the sounds that they were doing were in vogue, I thought they missed a lot, but this one was a home run for sure. Next up, coming in with some more Christian F and Niki B. This is Tanta Mana, and Niki B and Christian F did the remix of it. It's called Talking. And there's one element in this that I think I like more than anything, and it's the low riding bass line. It's kind of like a groan, like a groaning sound. You'll hear it in the sample here. I noticed that when I play this out, that element, which kind of lurks if you're sampling it, becomes really prominent, and I just think it totally crushes. This is nice, chuggy, progressive house, and I remember picking this up in 611 Records down in Philadelphia, and I loved it. Last one for today. Probably the most insanely good release out of the entire Saw catalog. And as far as I know, this is one of the few, if the only, Saw records that got like a real non-Saw label sleeve release. You know, they got like a really nice gatefold. This is Chab, Dub Edits and Whiskey Coke. If you notice, I didn't talk about any Chab records yet on this episode, and it's not because I don't like them. It's because everything that you need that Chab ever made on Saw is on here. So you've got Closer to Me, which was huge. Digweed was rocking. Actually, everybody was rocking Closer to Me in like 2006. Or 2005. It's got Lover, which you're also probably familiar with. Satoshi Tomiie did remixes of that. It's got 5. My Memory Part 1 and 2. My Memory Part 2 is so good. I'm gonna give you guys a clip to that. Us and Them was huge. I know a lot of DJs were playing that back in Philly, and 1987 was another winner. I mean, this is an all-star lineup from top to bottom, and you can still get this for cheap. Highly recommend this. If you're gonna grab one title out of the whole episode, please give this a try and just sit down and listen to it. Like, you can play this in a club setting and you'll crush it, but you can also just sit at home and just enjoy this. It's a total listening experience. So that's all I have for today, guys. I hope you enjoy your 4th of July holiday. Let me know what picks I missed. You know, leave a comment down below. Mark, you forgot about this one. Maybe there's something that I just never heard out of the Saw catalog and, you know, I overlooked it. Don't let me sleep. All right, take care. Peace.